All right, so good evening, everybody. This is our Thursday, December 2nd installment. We're doing info sessions on Piggyback Network, a startup that Donald, my buddy from college, and I've been working on for a few years. We just launched in August, and we've been getting some traction as far as customers, and we're starting to take some feedback on pivots that we can take. And most importantly, we're starting to get noticed. We've had some news coverage. We've had some meetings with some major cities, some towns, some different public schools, networks, different ways that we can utilize our child transportation network to help a variety of different ways. So what we're looking to do is explain the concept of how it works, hoping to have some of our listeners, friends and families encouraged to sign up as customers, as well as introduce the investment opportunity, which is offering equity in the startup company in a way that typically hadn't been done before. Quick breakdown of how the agenda is going to work. We'll have our introductions, myself and Donald, followed by a pitch deck of the company, which will be roughly 15, 20 minutes. There will be time during the pitch deck to throw out questions as it pertains to what we're talking about. What we're gonna ask that non-related questions be saved for the end, where we will have a session that we can ask open-ended questions to get more in depth. We haven't had to use the break with previous calls, but if we have to do a split, if people need to walk around, take a break a couple of minutes, we do have time for that. And then we want to get into the investor roadmap and talk about that for another 15, 20 minutes, followed by the last Q&A session. Okay, hopefully that's how we'll keep track. We did our first session with about 20, 23 people, and we weren't able to keep to the time, but these are smaller sessions now, so hopefully it's more, interactive. You guys are encouraged to speak up, ask questions, give comments, and then we'll try to answer them as best as possible. Feel free to utilize the chat. Feel free to just come off mute and speak, and we'll roll that way. So my name is Ismail, father of three, Chicago-based. I'm an IT software consultant by day. Last 18 years, it's been my profession, and very involved academically with my children, as well as extracurricular, as well as volunteering at the schools and things like that. And it's kind of one of the reasons we got involved with this. Donald's also raising some children, and we're kind of thinking like, gotta be an easier way to get these kids back and forth, as well as build the community together. So one of the things that we're looking to do. Donald, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, what I'll do is come off of mute. I'll turn on my video to speak, but what I think everybody sees is the green dot. But I'm Donald Scott. I am co-founder with Ismail, or Ish. I've been talking with different Ismails, and Ishes throughout the day. So it's been a long one. In any case, the days get long, parents are busy. Piggyback Network is here to support the work that we do and the effort around transporting our children. I'm a software engineer by trade. I work for IBM, I'm a solution architect. Today has been very long. Actually, this will be a bit of a tangent, but if anybody is familiar with installing Cloud Pak for Data on a ROX cluster, and you've used Watson speech to text or text to speech, please let me know because it's keeping me up late. But I would say let's make this interactive. I'll turn off my screen here in a moment, and then I'll share the slides. But thank you all for joining, and it's nice to see you, Ratina. We'll have to catch up at some point. But that's all for me, and I look forward to this discussion.
All right. If we can start with the agenda page one more time. We got some people that came afterwards, so just want to run through the sequence of tonight. So it's going to start with the introductions, which you just wrapped up, and then we're going to have about a 15, 20-minute introduction pitch, which is going to talk about the business, why we started it, how it works, the makings of it, and sort of where we're headed. And then we're going to have space for Q&A. Again, if there's questions while we're walking through, feel free to come off mute and shoot them out to myself and Donald, and we'll handle them with a small enough group like this. It shouldn't be a problem. Then if we need to, we can take a break for a couple of minutes. If you guys are good to keep going and you're able to multitask on mute or whatever you got going on in the background, we can jump into the investor piece right after that, and then followed by a final Q&A. All right, so let's jump in and find out about piggyback. So for any parents on the call and those that know parents, our problem statement is that parents are busy. We spend a lot of time driving kids around in some situations, and if we're not doing the driving, we're thinking about how are they going to get around. We're trying to plot out that piece of transportation to get them from point A to point B, whether it's school related, whether it's physical activity, whether it's tutoring, anything like that, social activity. And for some of us, our children are too young, or we just don't feel comfortable with the Uber model because we're not sure who exactly is coming to pick them up. We know it's a blue sedan, we know it's a gray minivan, but we're not sure who the actual person is. And in our lives, living in Chicago, being in these selective enrollment schools, we're driving different locations to drop off multiple children. And sometimes we overlap with rides with other parents, but we don't necessarily know who those parents are because we don't see them on a regular basis or have a chance to actually bond with them. So it's not like in the past where when I was growing up, we could lean on our neighbors or lean on other family members that live close to us and say, hey, look, could you give us a ride from here to there? Today, we're more connected with technology, but we're not necessarily tighter knit with technology. We don't have that trust like we used to. So next slide. So the solution that we came up with a year ago was create a network that's giving equitable experience, safe, tech-enabled, affordable rides to parents so that the parents can become that community that we'd like to see. It's empowering parents that have the capability with that extra seat in the back, 2 seats in the back, the route that they're already driving, they could use that to help another family out that needs a ride go in the same direction. And with that, those families become bonded and they become tighter in the community as a result. We're unlocking opportunities for families that otherwise would not have the means to attend a certain school, participate in a certain activity, get a certain experience out of it. And it's also freeing up certain family members from that burden of stopping what they're doing to stop and go pick up the kid, stop and go drop off the kid. Or worst case scenario, the kid's not able to go attend that school or that activity because transportation isn't an option. Next slide. So again, starting this in Chicago, piloting in Chicago, Retina's in Ohio, but everybody else at least has a sense of what the schooling situation is, selective enrollment schooling, where it's not a neighborhood school. You have families that live outside of the bus boundaries and have to commute to those schools. That's the pilot situation that I'm in. 2 of my girls are in 2 different selective enrollment schools. And there's also after school activities. What are you gonna do between that gap of the school's ending and the end of your job, your work day? And then there's also neighborhood safety as far as can they walk, can they ride the bike to get back and forth to where they go. So these are all things that hit the pilot city, Chicago, that we're talking about, and opportunities that we think we can help out with. Next slide.
Yeah, and I'll jump in right before we move to the next slide. We had a call today with some folks helping us with the marketing strategy, and both of the people on the call were parents, and one of them shared a story of that morning having been in the carpool lane and being cut off by another busy parent. And so when we shared this story about what Piggyback Network represents, parents understand it right away, especially those who are required to schedule their day around transporting their child. One thing that we did hear, though, from other feedback was that those who may not yet have children, though this is a conversation around investing in the idea, still trying to articulate and represent I'll use the word stress, the stress that's associated with supporting youth transportation is why we believe that this is such a good idea, because anyone with a child who who does not have access to public transportation, but also does not talk to their neighbor because of the way we spend our times in what are called these days either bedroom communities or especially the fact that so many people have been working from home, we don't necessarily rely on our neighbor as best we could. So we find ourselves lined up in carpool line or sitting in a parking lot at baseball practice or concerned about whether or not our children are getting home too early from school and whether or not when they get home, there's someone there to, be a positive influence. I'll use it like that. So as we talk through the equity first for our communities, it's for all communities. And then we know that selective schooling conversations along with transportation, as well as enrichment activities for whether or not we can get a child to or from practice such that they can then, make friends, have that social experience and or show off their leadership qualities. And then ultimately, neighborhood safety is all affected by equitable access to transportation.
Thank you. So the why it works, this is where sort of the high level pitch goes when we're trying to talk to different school districts or public or cities or the park district or whoever. This is sort of the taking out the fact that we're parents and this would be something great for us to be a customer. The why it works is sort of the 50,000 foot view. And we hit on three different things. We hit on trust, we hit on building the community, and then also giving back to the community in multiple ways. So the trust, the parents that are on our network would be the drivers for the parents that are on our network. So it's not a case of, who did you hire? It's a case of we're driving for each other. We are parents that have the knowledge of how the seatbelt works, how to handle with the kids with temper tantrums in the back seat. We get to screen the families before we agree to ride together. So there's that extra added trust factor because one, Piggyback has already background checked them as a company, but then even before you start your ride, you've met with them in sort of a eHarmony type of screening to make sure you've met the child has met the other driver, the children met each other, you've met the parent, you've sat with them, had a meal with them, watched the way they parent, they've given you a sample drive if that's the need, whatever needs to happen. We want there to be an initial trust element before you start scheduling the rides. And if you don't feel comfortable, no love lost, go back to the matching pool and see who else matches with you. As far as building community, Donald touched on it before, we're not very trustworthy of our neighbors, of our coworkers, of even some of the same people that are on our children's teams and classmates, because we just see them in a high and by capacity. We're in a rush dropping them off, in a rush picking them up. We feel obligated to go to the recitals and the dances and then the baseball games and everything, but we're there sort of halfway, still got work on our mind or still thinking about what we have to do next. And we're not really opening up. Where there was a statistic that says 20% of Americans used to carpool in the 70s, 80s, and that percent has dropped to 10%, dropped by half. And the major reason is just trust. I don't trust the next person the way I used to. And there's also this concept of the internet brings us together, but it also puts a phone in our hands instead of a conversation where we're actually talking to people in person and building that trust. So we want to use the internet to introduce people, but then also build that trust so that this person is now in your phone that you've matched with, you're comfortable with their kids, they're comfortable with your kids, and you're building that community. The giving back to the community part, since the beginning, we wanted to make sure that the company, while being profitable, is also putting money and resources back into the community. This goes with adding populations back to some of the after-school activities, where we just witnessed this with our daughters. The dance company that they were dancing at was Beverly based. It was around for 25 years. They just celebrated their 25th reunion. They didn't survive COVID. COVID shut them down. They weren't able to bounce back and they had to shut the doors. They had to completely shut down the studio. Even before COVID, a lot of after school activities, a lot of youth activities are dealing with population issues. They can't fill the facilities, they can't fill their classes. And this is a way to say, okay, if you're having issues with getting people to sign up in certain communities, in certain neighborhoods, transportation shouldn't be an obstacle. We can get the kids from school to your activity. We can get the kids from home to your activity, affordable, reliable, trustworthy. That shouldn't be the problem. If the program is only lacking the bodies, we want to help with that. One step up from that, for any ride that originates or terminates at these youth facilities that sign up as community partners with us, we're going to donate a portion of the rides that touch that facility. Now we're actually putting money back into these facilities and helping them stay afloat as part of the commitment to building up that community. Next slide.
Quick
So,
question on that.
yes, go ahead.
Quick question. So you say that's the first time that someone goes to that location, or is that every time someone goes to the location, they're getting a percentage?
Yeah, so on a monthly basis, we would aggregate how many rides originated and terminated, looked at the value of each of those rides, and then give a portion of that value back to the facility. So it would be maybe lagged about 2 months. So at the end of 1 month, we start aggregating. By that second month, we're actually cutting them a check or sending them an electronic payment to say, you know, thanks for your participation. Thanks for spreading the word. Thanks for encouraging your parents to use Piggyback. Here's a kickback.
And one more question on the trust piece. So I understand that you all are doing background screenings on the drivers. How extensive are those screenings? Are you all looking for, you know, drunk driving citations? Are you looking for tickets? Are you looking for warnings? Do they have all of those things that they can track?
So there's an HR screening company that we're using, goodhire.com. And the way we set up our policy with them, we are able to go cookie cutter and decide what we want to check for. So because there's driving involved, we are definitely checking the motor vehicle history report. So that's going to look at, are there any accidents? Are there any DUIs? Are there any speeding? You know, what is their driving record like? And when we get the reports back, there's a recommendation, yes or no, for each individual. In addition to the motor vehicle, we're looking at national criminal background, as well as county level criminal background. And then there's also the sexual registry, since they are going to be, you know, dealing with children, we're giving that check as well. And when I set that up, I use the Chicago Public Schools basis of what they look for. When I volunteer for CPS, I have to do a fingerprint check because I'm in the school with children. So they do a background check on me. I looked at the different things that this background check is checking for and made sure we are not only meeting that, but exceeding that. We're actually looking for more things than they're looking at to be able to hire a teacher, to bring someone into the school as a vendor and things like that. And that gets checked every 2 months. They're refreshing the check every 2 months.
Thank you.
Yep. Good questions. All right, let's keep rolling. So the dirty numbers. So this is the part the large investors get involved in. They understand that we're in it as parents, and we want to make, you know, everybody feel good and be comfortable, but they're like, you know, it's their dollars, it's their money. So we're looking at the hybrid, the merge of two different markets. It's very large markets. The first one, everyone knows Uber, everyone knows Lyft. The rideshare market is rising, it's booming. You can't not know what Uber is. You can't not know what Lyft is. Some people use Uber and Lyft to bounce against each other to see which one's the best option. The rideshare market is growing at 19% compound every year. The numbers have gone from 61 billion in 2018 to a projected 220 billion in 2025. We plan on getting a piece of that. We as a nation, we commute as single person, single car when we drive to work. Adults are driving one person, one car to work. Planning on utilizing some of that, saying if you're commuting and you can use this service to send your children, we're encouraging you to drive that commute to work and offer to drive alone with someone else. I mentioned before, less than 10% of us commute to work by carpool. Used to be 20% in the 80s, it's dropped to 10%. And then this is the biggest number. Monthly, the users have grown from 50 million to 110 million in just 3 years with a leading rideshare company, that'd be Uber. And it's doubled. And we're looking at who is becoming new members. It's doubled, but of those 37% fall between the age of 16 and 14. Those 16 and 24-year-olds are going to be parents within the next 10 to 15 years. That's who we're looking at targeting once we're good and mature. These people would not know a time that they didn't have the access to a vehicle, to a ride within their cell phone. And so it's hard to convert right now. I've got my mind made up. My in-laws have their mind made up of how things work and what's safe. Totally different mindset once we're looking into. Next slide. The second market we're looking at, parents are spending money on extracurriculars. 2019 number was 22 billion. This is sports, this is dance, this is gymnastics, this is swimming, this is anything to do after school. It's the hot dog package and bun situation where hot dogs come in a different count than the buns. The way school lets out at 2:45, 3:15, the average adult is not out of the office that time, and there has to be something that takes place after the fact to keep that kid occupied. There's also the stat that when you're involved in extracurricular activities, it helps with making yourself a productive adult. It helps with academics, it helps with getting accepted into certain societies and certain sports and certain colleges and things like that. Your activities kind of lead the way to what level of success you're going to need. And we plan on leaning on that and also adding to that by giving kids access to this market where transportation was an obstacle to start with. Because there's disparities by socioeconomics and by neighborhood. The zip code you're born into, you can project the likelihood of joining a major sports team or playing a varsity sport or getting involved in different athletics or different competitive leagues and things like that based off where you were born. We want to take that statistic and change that. Okay. So revenue streams, everybody wants to know, how do you make money? So our customers are all parents, but within those parents, there's two different types of customers. One customer is going to be the requesting member. One customer is going to be the offering member. The requesting member is paying for piggyback points. They would literally purchase $20 worth of points. They get 20 points into their profile. When they have a ride, each ride is calculated how many points it's going to be worth. At the end of that ride, when it terminates, their account is deducted by the number of points for that ride. At the same time, the driving member is going to have points added to their account. So points go down, points go up. Piggyback keeps a portion of that transaction. So if a ride costs the requesting parent 10 points, they're going to pay their 10 points. 5 of those points goes to the driver, 5 stays with piggyback. So we're eating a portion of each of the transactions as the rides are taken out. There's also the partnerships where we're going to have businesses that are invited to invest into piggyback as partners, and they may have access to what we call aggregated data, not selling people's information, but we are saying, hey, in this city at this time, there's a lot of parents going from this place to this place. It might make sense to go ahead and add a grocery store right there, or it might make sense to, divert this traffic to go this way. There's certain wealth to having this information because these families, they're moving. If you ever pictured like the way some fish move in schools, like these families, when it swells up and it's time to commute, you'll see large pockets of cars moving all in one direction. We'll be able to track that data and have a lot of information on who that data is. And there's a lot of value to that to a lot of different companies. Next slide. So when we talk about competition, there is no company that does exactly what we're trying to do. Most of what we found are going to be hired drivers. And the hired drivers, because they're paying a dollar amount to their hired drivers, and because they have to maintain the cars and they have to reimburse for mileage and pay a lot of different insurance fees and things that we can get away with sidestepping, their price point is much higher for the families. The minimum that we saw of our competitors starts the ride at about $15 before we even start talking about how many miles we're driving, how many minutes the driver is actually going. The base is $15. Our average ride for the 320 or so people that have signed up and made requests Our average ride comes at about $10 and is about a 10-mile ride. So it just shows where our price point is and why people are leaning heavily to sign up, because the competition of a hired van, that's one-on-one driving or group driving, everything starts at a higher price point. And then you're committing to a contract. You're committing to this driver's going to be here every day. It's real life's not like that. Real life's flexible. Real life is, my daughters have a different agenda Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And my daughters have a different agenda in October than they do in January. Things are going to change. My schedule is going to change. My wife's schedule is going to change. We want it to be just as flexible as the reality of parenting. And from what we've seen in our competition, they're not able to handle that change. They're not able to handle that flexibility. What you're paying is contract to cover a certain amount of time, and your individual driver doesn't have that flexibility where if I'm just texting one person and saying, hey, I can't do next week, but let's switch it to that week. Okay, fine. You change it in the app, changes, everybody gets notified, and then we execute based on that change. Real life changes in real time. Next slide.
Yeah, I'll add a point too. Maybe we'll add it to these slides. Not only is our competition the standard rideshare organization, but from a disruptive perspective, we are also in conversations around reimagining the way we move children back and forth from school into the community as a function of school buses. As Ish may have mentioned earlier, a lot of the visibility that came via the media was because of the bus driver shortage crisis that happened at the beginning of the year. But what we've also seen inside of that crisis, which is what was making school districts most upset, is the cost associated with these bus contracts. One of the groups that we were talking with seemed to indicate that their yearly fee for bus maintenance and bus contract is $5 million a year with a 5-year contract term. So they immediately know they're out of $25 million, but also the service that's provided is poor, to say the least. We ran similar numbers on number of students and overlap. Let's see, number of students and relative number of miles. And if they use Piggyback Network, of course, there would be a decent amount of difference, because we wouldn't be doing group ride, meaning there wouldn't be 60 kids in a car. Instead, it would be minimizing the number of students coming in single car, and likely more students with access to different schools. But that price came to like $500,000 to $1 million for 1 year with no minimum contract, right? So if we are as disruptive as we believe we can be, even if we didn't have just parents going back and forth individually from work, school, and extracurriculars, if we were working with school districts that did 5,000 students, that number times the number of school districts around the nation becomes a pretty significant sum of money. So, part of the competition, as well as part of the disruptive nature of this idea, is why we're so excited about it.
So with that comes changing the narrative, changing the way parents, teachers, schools, insurance companies, changing the way we think about transportation. And it's not relying on communities with a high median income. We've seen that the markets are out there with, if you have the money, we can get your kids safely to and from. We're looking at the communities that don't fall into that. We're looking at a lower price point with a broader footprint. And we appreciate that the parents want to be involved. We want to empower parents to be part of the solution instead of sitting back and saying, hey, somebody needs to fix this. Where's the solution for my kid? Our bus has been late. Why don't you fix this? Because decade after decade, that bus being late or completely missing your child's route, that's been happening going back 20 years. It's nothing new to that. And it's just keep rinse and repeat and keep bringing that same thing back. We're not about assigning random drivers or passing the risk on to the child. We definitely want to have that accountability in the drivers that you select, that you screen. And we want to prioritize the importance of investing, as we talked about, into the communities that we're serving, focusing on building strong networks and investing in the local businesses that partnership with us. Okay. So that's the full pitch. That's the nature of the business. If there's any questions about how it works or what the vision is for once it's fully matured, we can touch on that now. And in the next section, we'll get into the investor portion of the call.
So two questions. One's about the market that you're going after. You spoke about the high income earning family who they can secure the ride. From what I'm hearing, this company is really built for the medium income family who they've got activities that they want their children to be involved in. They can provide rides, but they're lacking the time. Yeah. What about the low income family that doesn't have a car? What can they do in order to? I mean, they could benefit from this company by putting their child in someone else's car, but can they rack up points in any way, considering the fact that they don't have a vehicle?
So,
that's the first question.
So yes, both questions. The medium income family, we are hitting a point where when we talk to certain high earning families, they don't have a benefit necessarily of being able to drive just so that they can take a day off. They're like, I'm comfortable driving every day. There's got to be something else in there. So we're actually looking at those situations and saying, okay, me, when I started this, I was looking at it, it's like, I would love to be able to drive so that I can earn enough to not drive and be net zero. But now we're looking at, okay, the incentive of not driving may not please everybody. Let's look at partnering with other retailers to say, okay, if you drive, you can earn points, which would actually be beneficial to these retail spots. Now, maybe you get your Peloton stuff for free. Now, maybe you get discounts at Dick's Sporting Goods. Maybe you get gas cards from BP, things that driving parents look at as, oh, that actually helps my monthly budget because that's stuff we're already spending money on. So where there's medium tier, like I'm driving to get that day off, I'm so busy. There's also the people that will be incentivized by saying, okay, I'm driving to earn those Southwest miles. I'm driving to earn these things that I was going to spend money on anyway, but now I get it for free because I've driven. The low income question, the school that the district that Donald mentioned we were talking to before, that $1 million to cover the whole year, that actually included the school district paying for the low income families. That's no out of pocket for the citizens or the parents. That's the school district paying the piggyback points. You sign up for a piggyback, your points are provided by the district. They're actually doing that now with Chicago Public Schools. When you get cut from a school bus route, the city is giving you $500 every month to figure it out. So we took that model and we were like, $500 goes a long way in piggyback points. You could get away with less than half of that with a lot of these routes that people ask, and that's every day back and forth. So that money means that those low-income families don't have to come out of pocket if that's how the model is set up, if the city would agree to that. We're also approaching employers to try to get piggyback added as an HR incentive. So now if you work at Walgreens, if you work at Mariano's, you can have vision, you can have health, you can have piggyback points if you're a parent, provided by your HR package. So every month you could get a refresh of your account. You don't have to come out of pocket and your child can be transported back and forth.
Gotcha. Okay, second question. I promise I'll shut up after this. Okay, I got three. What is the incentive for the investor that doesn't have children?
The investor or the driver?
Well, the investor. We'll start there.
The investor, anybody can invest. You don't have to be a family person to invest. The return on the shares is going to be the same whether you're a family or not. You might
Okay,
understand that better once we get to the investor part. You might understand that better.
Got it.
Go ahead. Another
I
question.
was going to say a slightly different question, kind of the opposite side of what you were talking about earlier. How does your system plan to balance the inventory of available rides for certain communities? So we know, like with Lyft and Uber, rides in Lincoln Park are super available, but maybe not in Inglewood. So how does your system plan to balance that inventory of drivers available?
Sure. So the data drives all of the availability. So what we can see now, who's signing up, it's sort of all over the place. We're just getting started. Word is kind of spreading. We will be able to track where we have a lopsided amount of offers, where we have a lopsided amount of requests. And we can use our marketing to target those areas to say, why do we have this gap? What's missing? Are we missing something? Are we not incentivizing correctly? Is this just an area where very few people are capable of driving, but they have the need to get out of this particular community? And in that case, we might be able to look to funding a driver to go out of their way. We've talked about potentially having fleets supply certain areas where there's just not the same amount of offering as there is requesting. We haven't gotten to that conversation yet, but the data would be able to tell us, we have a high demand here, we just can't meet it, or we have too much demand here, we can't, everyone that's offering doesn't have someone to ride. So that is something that if it keeps happening, we'd have to look at different ways to fix it, but we haven't hit that yet.
Yeah, I'll add one bit of nuance to the question as well. From an Uber and Lyft perspective, there are employees whose sole job is to be on call for a ride. Piggyback Network is meant to introduce you to someone who is likely going on your route on a regular basis. So for example, baseball practice is Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have games on Saturdays. My route, when I log into Piggyback Network and say, this is the route I need, I'm going to be introduced likely to a teammate's parent that's also going to baseball practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays and games on Saturdays. Most likely, we're all going to the game on Saturday, but those Tuesdays and Thursdays, we can probably swap. So if there's a community that does not have access to rides, that's because the community doesn't have as many people signed up, right? So one of the things that is necessary for success is mass adoption. And that's why we are focused on the schools and the extracurricular activity events or extracurricular activity organizations, because we know that those are the concentrated places where people are going to and from.
All right, Ratina had a question.
Yeah, so how does it work with like some schools require that parents sign who is an acceptable person to pick up their children.
Right.
So how does that work?
So when I had my daughters in preschool, to be able to pick up or drop off, the way they took attendance for the child for the day, you ran your fingerprint across an electronic scanner. They know you're a registered guardian for Peyton, for Naomi. When I was looking at how that model works, that's another reason why Uber doesn't work for all of these situations, because you can't have a different someone coming in and check in and check out these kids at this age. When you make your match, when you have your interview, your face-to-face, you explain to them exactly what comes with picking up and dropping off. If they're at the same preschool that my daughter's at, I'm physically taking you into the building. This is Ratina. I'm introducing you to the receptionist. We're showing your driver's license. She's letting me pick up my daughters on some days. You get your fingerprint scanned. You're now in the system as one of our approved adults. If it's a school where they just have a visual system, with my daughter's grammar school, I had to take my brother up there with his driver's license, introduce his face to the teacher and say, this is a guy that's going to be picking up my daughter on certain days. If that's the policy of the school, you as the parent that's doing the request, it's your responsibility to let the driver know this is the policy that they require and walk them through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the process, or are we ready to jump into the investments?
One more, I'm sorry.
You got it.
What happens in the instance of cancellation? So you're supposed to drop a child off at baseball. Baseball's canceled. Is it upon the driver to get the child to the secondary location? Is that set up between the parent and the driver? How does that work?
All communication would be between the requesting family and the offering family. So same way with real life, same way if it was a bus, if the bus drives to a place and there's no practice there, that bus driver is responsible to say, okay, where do I take this kid? They call the base, they locate the parent, they find out what was the mishap. The parents, because now they're a phone call or a text away from each other, they would work out what the situation would be. Either they're holding the child until something gets figured out. It's a parent that's watching your child, so we would assume that they don't just say, well, get out and stand on the corner and you figure it out yourself. You would be two mature adults and figure out what's the situation there.
Okay.
Routine, you have another question?
Yeah, I do. Actually, my husband does. Go ahead.
All right. So in terms of the ride sharing economy, a lot of drivers do both. A lot of drivers, they're doing more than supplementing their income. So have you guys figured out is the incentive of driving in this fashion going to be incentive enough for them to also possibly work within your system? In other words, are they going to make enough money to warrant working within your system?
We actually are doing the reverse. We don't want people coming to us to make money. This is not a second job. This is not to pay off debt. This is you're driving because you have a benefit of using points as a parent. And the rates are not going to compare with being able to drive for an Amazon delivery or the food stuff that's out there. This is not going to compete at all with the dollar amounts that are out there for hired drivers. The concept here is that you're driving because it benefits you or a family in some type of capacity.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we can jump into investment. And if there's another question that pops up, just feel free to shout it out. So what we're gonna do is, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is you all see my screen. So what I'm going to do is go to the page that is Seat at the Table, where we are hosting the ability for people to invest. We have a decent amount of information about Piggyback Network on this site as well. But also the reason I'm coming here is we have a link to the deck that we are preparing to walk through. And so if you scroll past terms, you look under resources and you see this link here that says view the full Piggyback investment roadmap. This is a link to the slides now that we're going to walk through. So if after this call you have a question, you are more than capable of coming to the site and reviewing the deck again. We may put the pitch deck up as well, but we don't necessarily want people just going to the site, looking at the pitch deck, and then not joining the investor session call. So we are purposefully not sharing that deck at the moment, but from an investment packet perspective, this is readily available and it's easy to find as you come to the site thinking about what you would like to invest, when the time comes. So I'll share and expand. All right.
There's a typo in what I just said. I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh, there's a typo in what?
I put a link in the chat. I just put the correct one.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, got it.
so we wanted to walk through the idea from a roadmap sort of perspective of where we are and where we'd like to be and why we're initiating this campaign raise right now. So this was put together in November, taking our existing numbers, taking some projections that we'd like to get to. We have 4 stages of our roadmap. Where we are right now is in the green, the friends and family seed round. And typically friends and family is a close network of people that we try to sell on the idea of the vision that we're having, the passion behind it, what made us want to do it, the mission and everything like that, and sort of get that initial buy-in. And once we have that funding, we're going to walk through what that's earmarked for, what our plans are with that money, what the timeline looks like, and then what we expect the results to be once we get that fund. That's where the market traction comes in, that second orange piece. In blue, we have our Series A price round, and that's what you see on Shark Tank. That's where you see an established business with some market traction, with some results, with some revenue to show, growth to show, and they speak to the people that have a large bank and say, hey, look, now we're ready to really scale and start talking about large investments, quitting our jobs, you know, all of that beautiful stuff about owning a business that people usually see after the leaves have sprouted. And then we're talking about expansion and rolling things out at a national level. So today we're only going to touch on the first 2 and walk through what we're asking and what we're looking to do, as well as how it involves those of you on the phone and the rest of those in our network. So today, Piggyback is a thought. Piggyback is a part-time hobby. We're building this literally in our spare time, overnight, not sleeping, weekends, missing events, something that's been just eating at us for the last couple of years, but it's not quite the business that we can walk away from our 9-to-5s yet because it hasn't sprouted yet. So we're self-funded. Everything we've done, websites, logos, all of the pitch competitions, marketing, everything has come out of our own pockets. And we're at a point where it's like, okay, this is really starting to catch some traction. Getting media rotation, a lot of help from the bus driver situation, a lot of help from COVID. The concept is really shining in pitch competitions. And like when we were speaking with people, light bulbs are going off and we have all these ideas of where we could go with this. We're starting to get support from a lot of different places. To get to those places, we need support. We need people to sign up. We need parents to register as drivers. We need to prove that the concept can catch on and that it can work. And we need feedback so that we can make this the best possible package and make it as viable as we think it can be. And we want to share the process with your parent network so that those that are parents outside of you, they start catching on to. So this only works if more and more people know about it. And we're also looking for you to invest in a piece of the pie and get equity for yourself. And that's a concept we're going to go into now. The friends and family raise where we are now. First of the 4, we're open for 3 months. February 14th is when our existing campaign will expire. And we have a certain amount of money that we have to raise. If we don't hit that limit, all of the money that's been invested is returned to the investor. That's basically the SEC telling us, we don't believe you, you need more people. Your concept might work, but you don't have the money raised for us to consider letting you have that money. It's actually going to sit in an escrow account if you're familiar with real estate. We don't get to touch the money until we reach a certain amount, and that's $100,000. So we don't get that by February. Everything goes back to the investors like we never did this. If we reach 100,000, we're able to take that and actually start using that to build up the business the way we have. Okay? So the details of what we're looking at. Typically in an equity opportunity, there's lower limits to how much you can invest. They don't even invite you to the table to listen to the pitch if you're not at a certain level. And that's done by design. People aren't to be swindled. They don't want people to get caught up in the ideas of what you could make. There's risk involved. They don't want the people that can't spare that money, they don't want them at the table even learning about it. That's SEC rules. So recently there were laws passed that allow brokers, certain broker companies, to bypass that because those brokers have an agreement with the SEC, with FINRA, that they will make sure certain measures are taken to allow everyday people, everyday 9-to-5ers, low income earners, medium income earners, as well as the people with deep pockets, to come to these types of presentations. We partner with one of those companies. We partner with Seat at the Table. They're an equity fundraising, crowdfunding platform, minority owned, great group of guys, great group of guys and girls. We've been working with them for over a month on getting our process set up and added to their platform. What they allow us to do is we can set our own terms. We set our limit at $250 as a minimum so that everyone around us has an opportunity to put at least a little something in and watch as it grows as we grow. We don't want to make it to a point of success and look back and say, we did it and not look back. We want to help everyone around us grow. And that's why we're saying that that little amount, $250, as well as, up to $50,000 for those that have it. But we cut it off there. We don't want one person to come in and be able to say, I want to buy all 100,000 of it. That comes later when we get to the Series A round. But for now, we want everybody to get a taste. Time window again is February 14th of 2022. The impact of that is now it's still an idea, but we have legs to actually make something happen. And this money is earmarked. So as we look at what we're gonna target this money for, we have, next slide, legal fees. So far that we've looked at, the patent application is going to be between $12,000 and $15,000. And we definitely want to patent our idea because as this is starting to hit pitch competitions and get public, we're at risk of someone else saying, I can do the same thing, build it up bigger and faster. So we're in talks right now. Those conversations are drawn up. We're just waiting for the money to be able to put down and say, okay, let's go through it. And there's other contracts, there's other agreements, disclosures. The lawyers definitely make sure that they get their cut on any type of business that's going to go out there. We want to be able to satisfy that, make sure everything's above board. There's also the corporate auto insurance. So when we started talking to State Farms and Geico's and Allstates, they don't insure companies outside of Uber and Lyft. And to become an Uber and Lyft, they were like, we don't even know how you get there. They just came to us and said, this is what's going to be. So we have to find independent brokers that will allow us to create our own package and those costs. And we're looking at paying that out so that we're covered in the event something happens with someone that's driving and they have their own insurance, but they're also covered by a piggyback insurance policy as well. So that's where some of the money for legal is earmarked for. Next slide. We've also got the marketing side of things. And we are in the works with a marketing firm right now that's based out of Memphis, that's both sales and marketing, and they're looking at the different audience that we're trying to target and the best approach to go after them, the best sequence to go after them, where it makes sense to advertise towards this group of parent, where it makes sense to advertise towards that one, where the overlap may be, the seasons, the date, the timing, what's worked, what hasn't worked. They come with the money back guarantee for some of the stuff that they're offering. Really great concepts, and they have bought into what we're trying to do. The two representatives that we spoke to, Donald mentioned earlier, they're both parents of three, each of them. We just talked for hours about situations that we've seen and how this could benefit, and it was just a really good meeting. So we feel good about going with them as a marketing firm. There's also, we talked about the incentives for those parents that are not interested in driving in exchange for time off, in exchange for sending their kid. They are comfortable doing the drive every day because that's their role. What they would be interested in is steep discounts on retail partnerships. We're talking gas, we're talking Peloton, Papa John's, whatever they spend money on as a family, Southwest Points. Now they're looking at it as, if I just do driving for the month, we can pay for the vacation. We can pay for, the gas for the summer. Like there's all these different trade-offs where it's stuff that they already spend money on. We're behind the scenes making partnerships saying, hey, we're sending you customers. We're providing you with, this type of data, these parents are coming to you at this frequency, and we get some type of kickback from those companies and able to use their services and their products at a deep discounted rate. So that's part of what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. This slide has just recently been updated. That's coming from having these types of conversations and bouncing these ideas off of the focus groups like we're doing tonight. Is there a question? I heard something.
I have a question real quick. So on that, investors receive the 20% discount. Does that mean we can buy shares at 20%, or the shares we would receive
20% off? 20% off. So if, for those that invest in these next 3 months, if you put $1,000 into our seat at the table portal, investing in your name, when we write your contract out, you will actually get $1,000 plus $200 when it's time to actually convert those to shares. You'll get a discount on what you put in. You'll get $1,200 worth of shares for the price of $1,000. Because coming in early, we're giving you these same shares at a discount versus if you would have just come when it's time to convert them to shares, you would get $1,000 for $1,000.
At what valuation are you guys selling shares?
Donald, that's your point.
Yeah. I'll jump in. So the simple agreement for future equity is an investment engine that's neither immediate equity nor is it immediate debt. And what it allows us to do, both us as the founder and us as a collective group of investors, because you figure once you become an investor, you're a part of the team. The way it works is, and let's see, so bear with me. From a friends and family round perspective, friends and family is traditionally not equity based. It's meant to be, Uncle John gave me $100,000. He doesn't need to see what's happening, nor does he expect any return on his investment. That has been the traditional definition of friends and family, which is why the SEC only allows accredited investor status to do that, because what they don't want is for us to go to our Uncle John, who may not have $100,000, but we sell him on this idea of something being worth $100,000. And then now we've taken his money and he didn't understand what was happening. So because of the way friends and family works, traditionally it's not an equity-based conversation, which means also there is no valuation specifically to your point or to that question. But the future equity says when we hit a priced round, which would be a Series A, for example, and a venture capitalist says, we want 10% of your company and we are pricing shares at, as Ish mentioned, $1,000 per share. That's when your future equity converts into actual shares of the company, and you receive a 20%, the language on discount versus premium is nuanced, but ultimately you would receive an additional 20% worth of shares at the price that you paid. So your $1,000 of safe equity would be worth $1,200 relative to what the venture capitalist is paying. So that's how that works, right? So ultimately, let's say 3 years from now, we've been generating revenue. We've got thousands of users, and everybody knows what Piggyback Network is. And then we say, all right, we're ready now to make that request for a $100 million financing round. If someone were to give us $100 million, that's when we're all ready to like pop bottles and and say that success is here. You know what I mean? But that's when the business then now has an actual valuation. And because we have a valuation, we now have formal shares, and your shares would have been purchased with a premium of 20%.
Yeah.
So are you saying you don't have a valuation for the company? Or let me ask this question. So what,
Yep.
for this seed round, what percentage of the company are you giving up for the people who are investing right now?
So the
Yes,
ballpark
that's an
that,
excellent question.
yeah, so
So
go ahead.
So we are not currently giving up any percentage of the company for the investment. Now, I think this was going to say, from a ballpark perspective, we expect that the revenue to be generated when we gain traction would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 a year, which then, depending on how you feel about numbers, makes it about 2.5 million, which is rough numbers, which then would say that the 250,000, if we raised our maximum at $250,000, then it would represent 10% of the organization. However, that number is only a function of what we actually get valued at when we do a priced round, because you can only get a proper valuation by an accredited investment firm, right? So we could say that our business is a $10 million company, but that changes the nature of the conversation that we would be having, because if we do that, we cannot offer these conversations to you as individuals. We are not accredited investors.
Right. So because it's a hybrid, because we're so early on, because we can't be audited, we don't have the revenue track, we can't say what the shares are worth. And that's why the SAFE agreement only has your information and a dollar amount. So that dollar amount carries until we have a raised round that is priced, that is audited, that looks at what our revenue statements have been like, that looks at what our expenses have been like, that looks at our 10-year track. What is this company actually bringing in? That's when we get priced. And it's like you've been put on hold from now until then. And then you get to the front of the line when it comes time to convert the money that you've got in your safe into the shares. We can't say what that share price is going to be, and we can't say when that's going to be.
So, so when I think about, so I'm CEO, We Prosper. We do this kind of thing all the time. And there's a part of the company that you own, and there's a part of the company that we own, right? And of the idea, otherwise, if you sold all 250 and we were really good at connecting with your investors and say, hey, let's all just, get together and say, hey, we own it all because you didn't put any money in, it's obviously not going to work that way, right? So what part do you own? How big is that piece of the pie versus this piece of the pie? Now to give me.
I see what you're saying. So worst case scenario, we carry out all our business. We get to the point where we're ready to be evaluated, and they come back and say, okay, with seat at the table, you raised 250,000. We evaluate you at 2.5 million. Then we sit there and say, okay, so that means that the 250,000 that we raised belongs to that's 10% of the company, belongs to the people that invested in it. And we own 90, you guys own 10. And then whatever the investor came in and seeded us with, they own that portion. So that's worst case scenario. And I think there's actually, Donald, is that 7 million? Is that a clause for the top range or the bottom range? It can't be more than 7?
The 7 million is a valuation cap.
Okay, so it can't be more than 7. So that's on the bottom, range, that they evaluate us exactly what we're estimating today. And on the top range, we can't go higher than $7 million. That's just something that's based in our SEC document. Does that make sense?
You can keep on going because I know you've got more to cover, and I have a few other questions, but I will wait till the end. So keep right on rolling.
Only a couple more slides. So yeah, these are good questions. All right, so that's where we are with. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say to get down into the detail, we certainly can do it on this call, but we're open to having a more financial focused conversation one-on-one if that is helpful.
All right, so let's go back to the technology. So as we are taking in these kind of pivots to how we're marketing and what we're offering and things like that, the technology is also changing. The need to upgrade on the website. We eventually want to convert this to cloud adoption and also put it as a mobile app. But we're working on a website version of it first, just to make sure we got all of the features and all of the kinks and everything added. So we've got an estimated 50,000 that's going to go into the tech space of this raise. And that's that between the legal, marketing, and the tech, that's where majority of this raise is going to go. And then we should start turning revenue where we're able to turn this investment into the actual monthly income and monthly revenue that we use to keep things growing from there. So the next step after that would be the market traction. And we anticipate this to be Q1 2021 to Q1 2023. And that's where we're actually taking these numbers that we've been growing. We've been adding this many members, we're generating this many rides. Our existing members are actually spreading the word and recruiting this many new members every month. We can take that growth and take it to school districts and take it to the parent networks and say, hey, look, our exchange with the retail partners has worked because we've helped these companies grow in revenue by these amounts. Our average, piggyback drivers are spending this much money with these new retailers. We can take all of this data and market that to spread our word. And at that point, we're not walking in with a concept, we're walking in with actual numbers, with an actual service that's actually yielding some results. And at that point, we start looking at the larger groups and sports districts and the different leagues and the park districts and things like that, and talking at a citywide industry level instead of just trying to hit parents one-on-one. And that customer traction just leads to more growth. And that's where we start bringing in the auditors to say, hey, look, we're ready now. We think we're at a sweet spot where you guys can come in and tell us what we're really worth. Okay. Next is the Series A round, and we won't actually touch on that tonight, but that's where your Shark Tank type conversations come in, and we're actually pitching ourselves to the different venture capitalists and things like that. That's when the investments you made before will actually convert into shares, and we'll be able to pop bottles like Donald said. All right, so you guys want to get more into the numbers? We'll have about maybe 10 minutes.
Oh, I just had one other question. It was, you mentioned a patent, like what specifically is patentable about this model?
Sure. So there are roughly 11 existing patents similar to carpooling in general. Some of them are dated back, pretty simple. Some of them are pretty specific. And doing with our patent attorney is making sure, one, that what we're doing is not violating patents. So if we were to put all of this out, it'd be the sweetest thing in the world, but somebody be able to come back and say, hey, I patented that, you're breaking my patent, you got to cease and desist. So one, we're making sure we're not breaking any patents. That's where a little bit of the money goes to. The second is when you have an idea that's new and not obvious, can be patented. So our concept of carpooling is not new. Our concept of rewarding.
Hold on, wait. One thing about patent applications is you can't explain what is new and not obvious. So I wouldn't go into much detail in what you're getting ready to say.
Oh yeah, that could be NDA related stuff. Yeah. I can't tell you, Regina.
Okay.
I'll just jump in and say that the patent attorney was able to find about 70 patents or patents pending with language associated with overlapping drivers, using routes to find people, how you use the internet or a mobile device or a digital medium to find a ride. For the most part, though, it's all focused on the Uber model. What we have not seen is anything similar in language as yet to what I would call the piggyback model. So your question was, what can be patented? What can be patented is the idea behind the process, but that includes the code that's been written, how we would implement it, and what language we will choose to use to patent it, so that someone can't come behind us and create the piggy front application.
Right.
Were any of those patents that you guys found by Uber or Lyft?
The ones that we found, no. No, most of, because Uber and Lyft are spot triggered, where they start their technology based on where you are currently. A lot of their language is ride hailing, and we are scheduling. So our systems are, from a technical approach, our systems are different by nature. So the owners are not Uber and Lyft themselves.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Speaking of Uber and Lyft, once they hear about this, I'm sure they'd be interested. So,
That's the idea.
okay, all right. So that's what you like to have happen. Okay, all right, cool.
No, they a lot of people are asking if we have an exit already planned out, and obviously we have a lot of work ahead of us, but the idea is this isn't the first thing we'll do. So we are definitely keeping our while this is passionate, we're definitely looking at where this could possibly lead us if someone got interested.
Okay.
It's my responsibility, though, to ensure that Ish does not say yes to the first offer.
I don't have a good poker face.
Okay.
Yep. But we got to get there. We got small hurdles to get over first. Any other questions? That is that's really where we stopped at the previous ones right at this time, and just kind of opened it up. We've had some great conversations. It sounds like there's experience on the phone, and we're not ashamed to say, like, we are reaching out to certain individuals because they have expertise in these areas. When it comes to investing, I am very conservative. Like, when it comes to, I've never been pitched to invest in someone's seed business. This is all sitting on the other side of this. I can only imagine just being in this space and being invited. I've seen the results of what happens when people get in early and something clicks. Our community does not jump on this stuff, does not have those opportunities, does not jump at these opportunities. So we're trying to educate, spread the word. If someone else has a business that they're thinking of funding, go for it.
Sorry if it's not too late. Can I ask one question? And I know earlier you mentioned you and Donald are the main developers and behind the application itself. Right now, for customer service and even you alluded to making technology updates, things like that. What is the plan? Obviously, it can't be just you and Donald going forward. So what is the plan, and have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, so if you want to go to the slide after Series A. So at this point, yes, it's just the two of us. If we have something that we can't handle, we're definitely outsourcing to like a Fiverr.com or something like that. But with the large raise where we're going to ask for about $10 million over 4 years, there come core members that we're going to hire. And that's where we're bringing in some type of executives to run things, and that's when we're actually setting up a team of individuals. We're done playing all the roles and wearing the different hats, and we're starting to actually assign who's going to be where. So to this point, like you said, we're everything. We get our calls forwarded to our cell phones. We get, all of the emails are being responded to by us, even though we're saying we and us. It's just like, it's just us at this point until we can't handle it.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Good question, huh? Someone else was saying something. Aaron, did you have a question?
Not so much a question. I think first of all, yeah, it sounds very interesting. And I'm very much like you, very conservative. Like we have financial people, and our financial people are like, hey, are you willing to increase your, whatever? And I'm like, hold on, like we just, just not so fast. We just got this, my wife just got a raise. We don't need to throw all that money back into, out of our pockets immediately. However, I guess one of the things is, So because of the connections that my wife has, she actually stepped away because baby girl is going to go to bed in a minute. So she actually may come back on depending on if she's done soon enough, because she has questions, but she also has some of that expertise you're talking about because she's worked with organizations providing services in underserved communities throughout Chicago in different capacities. And so she has connections when it comes to like lawyers, who may know of some other folks to reach out to when it comes to either investors or other organizations and that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm just curious about how are you allowed to engage when it comes to that stuff? Like, are you like limited when it comes to who you can talk to and how you talk to them because you have certain stuff going on, or because of this stage in the process? Because if we have some resources that we can share, we'd like to share them. Because my wife, like I said, she mentioned one or two things while you guys were chatting. She has a friend who's a lawyer who works in a particular field that may be useful if you know what I mean. So just curious
Nice.
about what you guys are allowed to do.
Sure. So the short answer to that, because we are going through this broker seat at the table, it is literally crowdfunding. We can send this link out publicly. You can forward it. You can invite anyone to look at this page. Anyone can join these info sessions. It's not the standard way of starting a business and you get in trouble if you solicit it out and invite people in. Everyone's got to go through this portal to invest, and there's checkpoints to get to the portal that they make sure we're not talking to the wrong people. So you can feel free to share it with your network. You can share them my individual email. If you want, they can sign up for the individual meetings or these group meetings or anything like that. There's no restrictions to how far we can reach.
Okay, because the legit conflict of interest, like the organization that my wife works for right now, actually does work as kind of not so much an investment firm, but a lending firm for startup businesses, small organizations and stuff like that who are looking for, who either don't have, like, I mean, you guys were able to pull together, quite a bit of stuff, with just the two of your small team. But there are some folks who like don't have what you guys have. They need some training or at least some education. And so like, Crystal is my wife. She's, working with organizations to provide education for them in certain ways, or if they need real estate, like they don't know how to go about it or how to get like that kind of stuff. And so some of the stuff that she knows both in her day-to-day job, but also some of the people that she knows in her the course of her career, I think we'd like to share that and see, and we got till Valentine's Day apparently to figure it out.
That's definitely useful. And then if she's coming across people that are in a position to reach out and have a raise, this works if they want to turn it into a loan, where that would be us presenting to you, and instead of you buying equity, you're giving us money and then we're paying you a dividend over years until we pay back that loan. Seat at the table is available for that as well. So it's possible they could work with startup companies and say, we have this package, that package, or you guys can go this route to raise your own funds. We're advocates of startups learning about these opportunities, because we were stuck in a position, both of us come out of Princeton University, friends that hear about this, they immediately, I can introduce you to this venture capitalist. Oh, I know this person that invests in companies and stuff like that. We didn't want to go those routes yet. We were like, let's touch the people that don't get these opportunities. And literally we ran into this seat at the table broker opportunity where it's like, we can do it with this vehicle. So there's a lot of benefits to where we are and the access that we're allowed to kind of spread around. But what your wife is doing, those resources to startup companies who have this great concept but just need a place to do it, have this great concept, right, maybe $15,000 short from, turning it into something. And I've been running into a lot of the different organizations within the last year and a half that are geared towards these underdeveloped, helping people get over that first hurdle. So I applaud what she's doing.
Okay. I'll definitely keep that in mind, and I'll share this part of it with her too, so she can start, putting feelers out and sending the links out and whatnot.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Hey, I'll add one quick thing. For those, I don't know who it was that was asking about the space specifically, but there's language in our portal that talks about what the safe is, but more specifically, I pointed us to the investment roadmap, but the link right above has the safe that would actually execute. So you can click on it, it's here. And you know, this is a legal document that was created by an attorney. Without getting into too much detail, the safe executes when we reach our $100,000, I'm calling it floor, because in order for us to withdraw the money from escrow, we have to hit $100,000, but we can go up to $250,000 during this fundraising round. When we hit the $100,000 floor, the safe executes and it becomes a legal binding document. And the language around the discount and the valuation cap is included in there. I would suggest for everyone, go ahead and Google like what a simple agreement for future equity is, understand what the valuation cap means, why we're providing the discount, why the Series A or the price round is important. Part of, as Ish mentioned, part of what we are hoping to accomplish by having these conversations as well is a bit of financial education around literacy and about investing, right? So even if you all don't invest necessarily with Piggyback Network, this conversation introduces you and others who traditionally don't get to have these conversations to what it means to be pitched and asked for money in return for something that has the potential to appreciate, right? And so we are here for the education. We're also learning, but anything that we learn, we are more than willing to share. So that's why we have this document readily available. So feel free to, take a look at it if there's something like, oh, your safe looks good, but my attorney wrote up a different one. We can have that conversation because ultimately these safes get executed individually, I believe. And so, without saying that we would, without saying that we would be open to doing individual safes for everyone, you're not necessarily locked, I don't believe, into the safe that we have established in order to be here on Seed at the Table. But I do believe that in order to invest through Seed at the Table, you would have to use this safe. But we are not restricted from accepting investments outside of this platform so long as you are an accredited investor under the rules of the SEC. So there's a lot out there, but we're open to conversation, and we definitely want it to be an educational experience as well as we all work through this together.
So how much have you all raised?
What is it, about 8,000 now? It's on the.
Let's see. I can see. Yeah.
Did I miss
So
it?
we've raised thus far, $8,000.
There we go. All right.
Which represents about 3%. So this is our primary competition, but she came in with 10K and then got another 8 or something like that. So although, well, we're not competing, but I mean, we're competitive individuals. So we see that and because they came in new, this is us talking now. They came in new. This is not in order by who's raised the most money. Their business just arrived to the platform, but when they arrived with $10,000. We arrived with 0, and we have earned through conversation, networking, and effort $10,000. I think this one showed up with 10, and then another 10 showed up. So whereas we're working and operating with the 250 minimum. Actually, we can check. Let's see what their minimum is. Okay, minimum 1,000. See, and they have, without getting into too much detail, right? But they have 4 backers at $22K, whereas I think we have, let's see,
13.
we have 13 backers at 8K. So I'm probably more proud of the 13, but at some point we're gonna have to start telling people to increase that minimum. but that's a conversation for later. Maybe by January 1st, when we hit January 5th and everybody's back, we'll start shaking the tree a little bit. But yeah, but anyway, all of the information is readily available. It's very transparent. I think one of the other things that's out here is our EDGAR SEC filing. So you can copy this link and see all the information that's available. But everything is meant to protect the investor in this case. And basically it's because they don't want us being excellent salesmen, but selling, a lie. So.
Yep. Any other questions from anybody? Again, we're available via email. You all have our cell phones if you need to get in touch. We will be hosting these another Tuesday and Thursday next week. And then we'll wrap it up and kind of assess where we are. Like Donald said, we may have to hike up the advertisement a bit and shoot out some more cold calls. But hopefully we'll get to our mark pretty soon because we got some money to spend already. All right, so I appreciate everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say as we sign out, it would also be very helpful, even if you're not yet ready to participate in the shared ride experience, please go in and log in. You only need username and email. You can add a route if you'd like, but primarily one of the other things that's important for our own growth is increased traction and visibility, especially around membership numbers. So we'd be more than honored if you would sign up for Piggyback Network.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And you're free for the rest of the night. Thanks for spending time with us.
No, thank you for your time.
Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you all.